Shall we just assume that it is the intergalactic, extraterrestrial, fantastically gifted organ student summer activity?
I knew you would come up with something good.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, I don't know whether that makes a good acronym, though.
We'll figure it out later.
Right. Well, welcome to those of you who are joining us at this point to hear the results of a week of work of a really remarkable collection of young students who are all over the United States who have been tuteled. Is that, well, I suppose as an organist, you're tuteled. You have been under the tutelage of Isabel Demers from Baylor University in Waco, who's being active from her home back in Quebec, and Toronto-based originally organist Ken Cowan, who is at his present home in Houston. Our young artists are from both coasts, north and south, and they will display themselves in a variety of repertoire. Excuse me if I bend down to read, but this is the way it is when you get to be my age, and even the glasses don't help. Andy Brown, I believe, is our first performer. He's from Silver Spring, Maryland, and has been playing the organ since age 9, which is to say he's been at it for about 8 years because he's now 17. Studies with Chu Young Suter, who is, I suppose I could get into a little riff on what it's like to have 2 organists in the same household and married to each other. But nonetheless, she's Eric Suter's wife, second, better half, that's the term that's used. And Andy gets to take lessons at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., which is a pretty nice way to be as a teenager. Andy's a golfer and a trombonist and a space nerd, according to the notes here. I can only imagine what a space nerd is in the year 2020, and I wonder whether Andy looks forward to getting on one of the space shuttles and taking a ride to some distant extraterrestrial destination. But for the time being, we're going to be taken by him to London, and imagine that we're standing near the government buildings and listening with Louis Vierne as Monsieur Vierne thinks about the Carillon de Westminster, the Westminster chime.
Hi, my name is Andy Brown. Today I'll be playing Carillon de Westminster from 24 Pieces de Fantaisie by Louis Vierne.
Wow, wasn't that something? Caroline de Westminster of Louis Vierne, Andy Brown, at age 17, playing with professionalism that some of us old folks wish we could recoup. Yes, quite marvelous. Thank you, Andy. Next, we have Nat Tong, who will be playing a bit of music much less flashy. But the trio sonatas of Bach are kind of hair-raising music, which I suppose I could apply a little to here, insofar as you are totally exposed. Nat, in his fourth year of organ study with Dr. Jung-Suk Bae, has achieved a degree of independence of hands and feet that he will be tackling Bach Trio Sonata for us. Attending organ camps is his favorite summer activity. I don't know, we might want to talk to him about that. But he's also an apex game fanatic, listens to classical music. I'm all for that. And on weekends helps his father's choir, accompanying either on the organ or the piano, or sometimes the violin. So let's listen. as Nat Tong plays for us the first movement Vivace from Bach's Trio Sonata number 6 in G. And I think he's probably going to introduce it for us.
Hello, my name is Nat, and I'll be playing Trio Sonata number 6 in G major by Bach.
Wow, that was fantastic. Bravo, bravo. Nat Tong with the first movement from the Sixth Trio Sonata of Bach. There was a famous American organ recitalist who used to give verbal program notes during his concerts. And when he would introduce a trio sonata, he would tell about how Bach had composed these pieces for the improvement of his first son, Wilhelm Friedemann, and describe the trio texture and the complexity of them, and then add, after a brief a brief pause, he said, Bach must have hated his son because these are torturously difficult little pieces, although they come off sounding just so light and lovely. And Nat, you did that up proud. And Simon Tomplay is now going to throw his hat in the trio ring and play the Andante movement from Trio Sonata number 4. Simon began playing the piano at age 8 and took up the organ at age 12. He's now 15, became interested in the organ listening to the instrument in his church. And then I suppose one thing led to another, and he dragged his parents on to organ recitals, or maybe they dragged him. You never know how these things work. Studies with Stephen Blackman, and we'll introduce his trio movement for us now.
Hello, my name is Simon Tomplay, and I will be playing the second movement of Bach's Fourth Trio Sonata in E minor.
quite marvelous. Just it seems so sweet and buoyant as it goes along, and then so sad at the end. Second movement from the Fourth Trio Sonata by Bach, beautifully played by Simon Temple. And now, if the notes given to me beforehand are correct, we turn to Ethan Chow. And I'm told by a little nod from Ken Cowan that that's indeed true. Ethan is 14 years old. He's been studying with David Ball at Christ Cathedral, the old Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California, which itself must be a real thrill and kind of frightening all at the same time, to be able to access instruments in that historic and grand space and focus on getting the notes right rather than just wow playing with the sounds. Ethan is a native of Yorba Linda, California, and regularly plays not only at Christ Cathedral but at his home parish, St. Martin de Porres, and in his free time, especially during this pandemic, enjoys cooking, baking. I suppose that's cooking too, though. And it's something I wish I were doing more of. I've got a wonderful bread recipe that I need to revive. And he also plays video games, and I have no idea what that's all about. But he's playing Mendelssohn, a piece that I studied years and years ago, although I wasn't 14 when I tackled it, I'll tell you. This will be the Allegro Maestoso and Fugue from Mendelssohn's Sonata number 2, and I think we'll just let Ethan introduce the piece himself. Thank you, Ethan. Really wonderfully done. Marvelous, majestic music, and reminding us that it was Mendelssohn channeling Bach in these sonatas, bringing alive the organ art in the 19th century, which after Bach had sort of gone a little astray. Marvelous music. And we continue with our performances of the as yet unnamed but impressive in every way summer organ camp that Isabel Demers and Ken Cowan have put together. It's really a delight for me to be able to hear these youngsters. 14 going on 15. Yay. Well, okay. Next we have 14. I don't know whether he will be going on 15 unless some horrible fate befalls him. And tackling one of the fun party pieces that every organist wants to play and every audience wants to hear, certainly around Halloween time. Hunter Gensler is a native of Austin, Texas. Started piano at age 4. Started the organ just a little over 2 years ago, but I think he's going whole hog with it because he just finished building his first home practice organ, and with his father built the bench and the pedal board from scratch. He also is supposedly in his free time involved in computer programming. So I predict a very positive future for this young fellow with woodworking skills and computer programming skills and musical skills. What's not to succeed? I mean, good heavens. Been taking lessons from Gregory Eaton, and we'll start, COVID pandemic allowing, high school this fall, entering into a really new and marvelous phase of your evolving life. Hunter Gensler plays for us, and I believe he will introduce this famous toccata. Hunter Gensler with a brave and stately performance of the toccata from the Gothic Suite by Leon Boelmon. And when you get a little older, Hunter, you might then feel as though it's appropriate to throw in the unwritten glissando on the last note, which some razzle-dazzle organists add just for the fun of it, and to make their teachers angry, I suppose. Organs, though they were invented before the Christian church existed, have been involved in the church through much of recent history, certainly from the Middle Ages forward. And their use today is still not primarily to perform wonderful repertoire, such as we are hearing, but to lead congregations in inspired singing. And so I think it makes perfect sense for this organ camp to focus, at least in some part, on the playing of a hymn, which Joyce Wynn will now do for us. And if you know the words, you might want to sing along. Take it away, Joyce.
Hi, my name is Joyce, and I will be playing the hymn tune Hyford All. This hymn tune has been in my life for very so long, and I absolutely love this hymn tune. This is a Rogers organ. I don't know what model or year it's from. All I know it's the Rogers, so I hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Joyce Wynn. Love divine, all loves the selling, excelling. Marvelous. This is what organs do best, which unfortunately they're not allowed to do these days during coronavirus. There's nothing like leading a full church in lusty song. And Joyce, I think you probably have fun doing that in the past, and I hope you have the opportunity to do more of it in the future. Okay, what do we have next? Chase Olson, 17 years old, a rising senior. It sort of sounds like bread, you know. Coming to his own as a senior in San Rafael, California, studying piano for 9 years and organ for 4. Current organ scholar at the Congregational Church in San Mateo, where he studies with Dr. Angela Kraft Cross. And I'll put in a little hip, hip, hooray for Angela as a composer, as an ophthalmologist, if I remember correctly, and also as a fine performer herself. and an Oberlin grad. So we share that background. Chase has enjoyed playing the piano and organ much more in the pre-COVID-19 days because he was able to take the organ on the road, as it were, much as Cameron Carpenter is doing these days, but maybe not quite so exotically. Chase would play at Nazareth House every Friday, and I hope you have the opportunity to do that in the not too distant future. More music of Mendelssohn. This is the final movement from the first sonata. It's a real whirlwind piece, and we'll let Chase introduce himself and it. Do it there. Sorry for the technical glitch. I hope you can hear me now. And thank you, Chase Olson, for the final movement from Mendelssohn's Sonata Number 1. Really grand stuff. Well, we're getting to the end of this first of our two-part adventure with stupendously talented young organ soloists who have been studying this past week with Isabel Demers and Ken Cowan, and showing that in some cases, a little polish will make even better what is already remarkable skill. In other cases, I wonder, what can these old folk teach these young folk? They've got it down already. Well, no, now don't let that go to your head, kids, because there's always something to learn. We will conclude with Christian Nielsen, who started piano at age 5. He's now 16, began studying the organ at age 13, currently studying with Dr. Mark Hansen at Boise State University, both piano and organ, which is a good idea. If you've got fine piano technique, playing the organ is a lot easier than if you just approach the organ first. But it seems as though most of these youngsters have gone that route. Let me see. Ryan Dye is Christian's organ teacher at the moment. Currently organist at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Boise area, playing for services, concerts, and regional meetings, and I suppose just very itching and anxious to get on the bench at the Tabernacle in Salt Lake City someday. Let's hope for the best there. And actually, the music that he's playing here would be perfect for one of the daily Temple Square concerts, because it has first something sweet and melodious and transcribed for the organ from Gabriel Fauré, After a Dream, Après un rêve, beautiful song. And then Toccata by Marcel Anquetil, who was organist for 40 years at the cathedral in Rouen. Played concerts in the 20s and 30s here in the United States, played the Wanamaker organ, and not a lot of his repertoire is still known, but this toccata will be memorable and memorably played.
Hi everyone, my name is Christian Nielsen, and for tonight's concert I'm going to play 2 French pieces. The first is a transcription of After the Dream by Gabriel Fauré. Originally this piece is for solo voice and piano, but I am playing it on the organ. I've registered the melody for 2 different voices, a duet between the English horn and the 4-foot flute. The second piece I'll play is Marcel Lanquetil's Toccata in D major. This is basically your textbook example of a French toccata. It has fast chord patterns in the manuals and a melody in the pedal. Hope you enjoy After the Dream by Fauré and Toccata in D major by Lanquetil.
Very impressive. Christian Nielsen with the toccata by Marcel Lanquetis, and channeling his inner Jane Parker Smith. If you check the record catalogs, there are not many people who have recorded that toccata. Jane played it regularly in her concerts. I don't know, Christian, whether you realized that yours was a memorial performance. Jane died at age 70 just a few days ago. A great artist to be missed, surely.
That's why
Although I don't know.
it's
She,
because of that.
she was a smoker and a drinker, so I don't know whether that fits in with your Mormon background. But we're all in this together. Organists, organ music, organ composers, organ builders. It sometimes seems like a rough road, but when you hear the music, when you hear the instruments, and when you're able to hear the remarkable talent of those so young as we have in this group, and as we will in group 2, which comes along later in the evening, certainly one's heart must be buoyed even in these challenging times. Some of us old folk may not have as much a future ahead of us as you youngsters do, but we, at whatever age, hope for you all the very best. I'm delighted to have been able to participate here, thanks to Isabel Demers and to Ken Cowan. And I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning, so if you haven't caught on who this old haggard creature is that's been blathering between the pieces, I'm Michael Barone. I produce Pipe Dreams, and you can hear me without the visual pretty much anytime you want at pipedreams.org. And I hope I'll find you listening there, and I look forward to listening here in the near future. Thank you all.